Okay, so welcome to our topic. We're going to be exploring this sense of presence and how do we open to all the qualities of our experience, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And so I'd like to invite you into a sit to arrive in this moment. So finding your seat, and just opening up to this moment. And let's start with our 5 physical senses. And maybe let's start with hearing. So just bringing a sense of presence to what's arising in the soundscape. And you may be noticing my voice, of course. There's some computer stuff happening, noises, internet noises happening maybe. Other noises in your environment. And maybe opening to the visual field. You could keep your eyes open or closed. If they're open, you're probably seeing the screen. You'll be taking in all the visuals of your peripheral visual field, the room, the light, shapes and colours. Opening to the kind of subtle things that we often maybe don't pay attention to in meditation, the taste in the mouth right now. The smells that are here in this place. And opening to the experience in your whole body, the sense of contact your body's making with the environment. Noticing the sensations of sitting, the arrangement of your arms and legs. Contact of air as you take in a breath and release it. This contact of air is not just happening on the surface of the body, but every breath we're taking air, letting it contact tissues of our lungs. Becoming present to the arrangement of your arms and your legs. Maybe a sense of ground in buttocks, sit bones, pelvis, legs, feet. And also maybe a sense of uprightness. And in Buddhist psychology, of course, we've also got a 6th sense that we can pay attention to, which is the flow of mental phenomena. So visual images in the mind when we have a memory or a planning thought, random images, and also the flow of language. monologues, dialogues, commentary. All of this, our aliveness in this moment. So feeling into your quality of your life right now. And noticing your capacity and your willingness to be present to it. A deeply honourable response to life, to taking this moment of practice. So just honouring yourself for taking this time to be present and learn about presence together. Maybe even having a sense of appreciation for all the things that have gone before that have led to this moment for us to be able to practice together. And noticing what this choice to be present in this kind of open-hearted way offers us. We do truly touch our existence, that we're alive. And for me, I'm noticing a sense of kind of being rather than doing. It opens me into a being mode, just seeing if that's true for you. It offers me a kind of sense of companionship, being in my own company, and of course I'm in the company of all you guys as well. So just noticing that, the sense of our group together. As opposed to kind of an absence or an obliviousness. A lack of clarity, or maybe a kind of distance from ourselves. We're really opening in this moment through our mindfulness meditation practice, this capacity for presence, occupying this moment of our life. And I just want to read something from Mary Oliver, who I think of as the goddess of presence, really. The poet, Mary Oliver. She says, "I know you never intended to be in this world, but you're in it all the same. So why not get started immediately? I mean, belonging to it. There's so much to admire, to weep over, and to write music or poems about. Bless the feet that take you to and fro. Bless the eyes and the listening ears. Bless the tongue, the marvel of taste. Bless touching." So in this invitation she's making, she's kind of offering more than just a cold neutrality in being present. Presence offers us a more kind of generous attitude, maybe, that we're welcoming or befriending or even celebrating our aliveness, our capacity to take in the world, contribute to the world. And of course, it's much easier to do this when things are pleasant, when things are going really well, when what we're meeting is delightful, delicious, safe, interesting. And it's so natural for us. Because we're a biological animal, it's so natural for us to respond to unpleasant experience with aversion and with a gross or subtle stress reaction of rejecting and an impulse of pushing away. So I wanted tonight to offer us a couple of practices, one more sort of gross than the other, to explore this sense of presence, really opening to whatever's arising in the moment with curiosity, with equanimity, and really get a flavour of when we're not doing that, when there's a subtle aggression in our practice, a subtle refusal. And, you know, it may well be subtle, but so beautiful to be able to work at a subtle level. Because for us, as biological organisms and social organisms, there's something very powerful, and it's a capacity to be able to have a big no and an aversion and act on that aversion if something's dangerous or wrong for ourselves. So we're talking about dropping into our practice to explore whatever comes your way in the next half an hour or so in the practice, where you can start noticing this capacity that we all have for opening, for presence, for acceptance, deep acceptance, and kind of immersion in our experience in a non-reactive way. And then there'll be moments of a subtle aggression, subtle pushing away. So natural. So in one Buddhist tradition, it's said that to be free, we must embrace the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. So this is what the playpen of our practice really offers us, this opportunity in a kind of structured, intelligent way to explore our experience and to practice that embracing, because it's going to come, This pleasant and unpleasant is going to be unfolding throughout our whole life. There's no way to construct a life in which there's not going to be pain, difficulty, challenge. U Pandita, a famous Burmese teacher who was influential in sharing the practice with a lot of Westerners, he said that practice is about expanding the range of experience in which we're free. So cultivating this capacity for being present with both the pleasant and unpleasant without quite so much reactivity is really about expanding the range of experiences in which we can be free. Can we be free even though things are uncertain? Can we be free even in knowing aging and illness? That's a challenge. Can we be free even if we're having a shame moment because someone thinks kind of badly of us? Can we have an experience of freedom even as we feel grief or a constriction of our possibilities, of our self-agency? Can we be free in those moments? And there's a great little Buddhist story that I'm going to tell you more as a joke than anything before we leap into our more formal practice. So there's a great marauding tribe that's, travelling through the landscape, and it comes to villages and just burns everything and kills everybody. And, there's the leader of the tribe, and they're all just doing this. And one village hears about this and they're terrified, and all the villagers travel up to the mountain and hide. But one dude stays in the middle of the village square, and he's just sitting there meditating. And the marauding tribe come on their horses, and the leader of the marauders is quite sort of affronted that this guy is just sitting there, what is he thinking? So he goes up to him and he says, "Don't you know that I'm the guy that can just cut your head off without batting an eyelid?" And the guy sitting there looks up and says, "And don't you know that I'm the guy that can have his head cut off without batting an eyelid?" And of course, as lots of these Buddhist stories, the marauder falls to his knees and asks the guy to be his teacher, and probably becomes enlightened in that moment, as those stories go. So aim high. So there's some real beauty in those stories, aren't there? Because it's sweet, and it asks us to aim high. But so cultivating equanimity, this is what this practice of presence is about, and working with our subtle and not so subtle aggression with ourselves, with our own experience. Because meditation, we often forget, like phenomenologically, it's actually about experience. It's not about accepting that person or that you know, coldness or heat, or not having quite the right food that we don't want. But it's actually about our experience. So it's a deep engagement with non-aggression towards our own experience as we come up against things in the world, rub up against the world, have contact that generates experience. So this is what our practice is about. It's about getting presence with our experience and making a bigger playpen of that, so we can actually be free in a whole range of experiences, even if they're pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And before we leap into practice more formally, I want to read something from Ken MacLeod. He has a website called Unfettered Mind, and he's a genius teacher, Tibetan tradition, but he knows a lot about other traditions. And there's a lot of lead practices on his website. And he says this thing about equanimity. He says, equanimity means an attitude of not interfering with the operation of the six senses. If you have a sensation in your knee and it's painful and it wants to spread, you let it spread. Why? Because you discover that it's precisely the interference with that sensation that causes suffering, not the sensation itself. Equanimity literally means balance. It means not to push and pull the flow of the senses. It does not for a moment imply that one would fail to take action with respect to external circumstances, nor does it imply passivity or apathy or anything like that. Equanimity is radical permission to feel. Equanimity is radical permission to feel. Equanimity is a dropping of the internal friction with respect to the flow of the six senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, the feeling body, and the thinking mind. As a state of radical openness, it's equivalent to love. As a state of radical openness, equanimity is equivalent to love. Isn't that beautiful? So let's practice a bit of love towards our experience this moment together. So I was thinking we'd do some lying down practice, but I think we'll just do it sitting up. I think it's less shenanigans, if that's okay with you, but feel free to lie down if that's better for you. So the first practice I'd like to offer us is something that may well be familiar with you guys. It comes from Tara Brach. She's a psychotherapist and Buddhist teacher with quite a genius for constructing little practice exercises through which we can learn to examine specific things. She's quite good at that. So finding your seat and organising your body in a way that supports your attentiveness. And feeling, just orienting to your posture, finding a sense of groundedness, and also a sense of uprightness, this sense of, John Kabat-Zinn talks about sitting on the throne of your life. So that sense of purposefulness and dignity in this moment. And in the way you know how, just opening to whatever's unfolding in this moment. six senses, all the physical stuff going on in your body, breath, posture, hearing, seeing, tasting, touching. Opening to the quality of emotion in this moment. Maybe a sense of settledness, curiosity, interest, ease, or a bit jangly, irritable. Just noticing what's here. Noticing the accompanying mental events in the terms of thoughts. And to experience firsthand what happens when we say no to our experience. Just getting in touch with that quality, that capacity we have as an organism to refuse something, to say no. And of course, this is just a bit of a template, so play around with it. And you might not have anything dramatic going on that you want to say no to, but fuck around with it. Begin by saying no to whatever's arising in this moment. So if it's a sensation in the body that you're aware of, mentally directing a stream of no towards that. I don't want this. If it's a feeling of sadness or joy or tenderness, allowing yourself to play around with having a no towards that. And letting the word no carrying the energy of refusal, of negativity, of pushing away what you're experiencing. And letting yourself get subtle, get curious about the subtlety of it. So maybe feeling into, even though this is a template, we're just playing around with this word no and the meanings associated with it. Noticing what's happening in your eyes, your jaw, your throat, as you embody this no. Notice maybe what's happening in your breath, even your heart rate. Any sense of muscle tension increasing, decreasing. Just checking out what's this moment of life like as you engage with thoughts of feelings of no, I don't want this, of refusal, of rejection, of aversion, of resisting what is. Noticing what happens in your gut, your pelvis, your legs. When you organise yourself in a no to this moment, what you're experiencing. This kind of adversarial stance. And now, if it's in your control, which I'm hoping it is, take a little breather from that and maybe even opening your eyes and letting yourself take a few fuller breaths. You may want to make some movements of your head and neck, maybe letting your chin move towards your chest a little. Maybe making some half moons with rolling your head from one side to the other. And noticing how you're orienting to your experience. What I notice in my practice is as soon as I kind of sit down to practice, I'm kind of orienting to a yes to what's arising. So just seeing if that's happening spontaneously for you, or if there's a neutrality in your approach right now as you deliberately let go of that active playpen of the no. And again, feeling into your seat, noticing how you're organising your posture, your arms, your legs, feeling into a sense of ground, but also of uprightness, feeling the breadth, the depth of the body. And just opening in whatever way you know how to whatever's arising now, your mood, feeling, emotional tone, kind of thoughts passing through, and how that's all being felt in the body. Simply allowing whatever's arising to be in awareness, being held in awareness, becoming present to it, this idea of presence. Allowing things to be as they are. If a body sensation is arising that's either pleasant or unpleasant, with some deliberateness now, just taking up this playpen of saying yes. Yes to this sensation. Yes to this feeling tone. Yes to this emotional quality. These qualities of mind that are here. Maybe allowing that word yes to carry an openness towards whatever's arising. Feeling a quality of openness maybe. Noticing if you can feel this in your tissues. What's that like? It may be discernible or maybe not discernible. Just checking it out. Letting the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts float in this larger field of yes. Willingness to be present, willingness to know, willingness to abide in these foundations of mindfulness. Yes to the pleasant, yes to the unpleasant. Yes to pain. Yes to even wanting the pain to go away. So natural for humans. Saying yes to even resistance if it arises. This beautiful quality of yes. Allowing. Allowing whatever's arising to simply flow, to spread, just how it wants to find its way, with no interference. Taking up Ken MacLeod's suggestion of equanimity being a lack of interference with the flow of things, with the flow of the six senses. This generosity towards the one who experiences, no wrangling, no controlling, this embracing the predicament that we're in, saying yes to it. Having a little clarity, some sensory clarity now of what it's like in your whole system as you open to yes. What happens in your heart as you say yes? What's the feeling in your gut and pelvis as you say yes? What's life like in this moment as you practice saying yes? Equanimity as a willingness to feel. Equanimity as an act of love towards this unfolding life. And just taking a moment to continue to be present to the flow of your inner life. Cultivating this quality of approaching, of allowing, of opening. Saying yes to these unfolding moments. We're going to be bringing this formal practice to a close in a minute or two. Just noticing what that feels like. Whether you prefer to stay in quiet, your own process, or whether you feel a willingness and happiness to connect with others in the talking. I want to share a poem with you. I was on a retreat last week and we had a marvellous time, beautiful unfolding. And this might seem like but I had a bit of an epiphany that actually so much of our practice work through the mindfulness and through Buddhism and maybe through some other skillful psychological means, we're really working towards knowing our basic goodness. It seems like such a generous way of constructing a view of practice. It makes a lot of sense to me. And so I want to read a poem by Antonio Machado that really captures that. So just letting yourself say yes or no to this poem as I read it, and maybe really opening to sensations in your heart as you hear it. He says, "Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvellous error, that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me? Water of a new life that I have never drunk. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvellous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvellous error, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night as I slept, I dreamt, marvellous error, that it was God I had here inside my heart." So just noticing what's happening in the flow of your experience as the contact of those words touches your ears and is taken in. Just noticing how it's touched you, whether it feels pleasant or unpleasant. Maybe exploring saying yes to whatever's arising in you as a result of that contact. Honouring the deep kind of organismic logic, really, of experience. Allowing yourself to be touched and responsive. And just remembering as we practice saying yes in life and in our practice, we're saying yes to our experience. We're not saying yes or no to things. We can only know the world through our experience. So exploring impulses to say yes and no to experiences as they're unfolding right here, right now. So we've got a bit of time now to explore. If you want to share, I'd love to hear any discoveries, either through this practice we've just done or just what you are understanding in your practice and life about this capacity for us to open to everything. And I've just arranged on the computer to allow you to unmute yourself. So if you want to talk, that'd be a good first step. Hello?
I'm trying to get me up there.
We can hear you. Do you want to be seen on the video?
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah.
I can't get my picture of my camera up there.
Okay, don't worry about that. Who's talking?
Chris Hooper.
Chris, hi.
That was good. Very helpful.
In what sort of way?
Oh, saying yes to whatever arises rather than rejecting and saying, no, I don't like this, or no, or being indifferent, but just letting it happen, sort of thing.
Beautiful. And what did you notice, Chris? How did you know it was good? What was the kind of experience of actively saying yes?
Well, I had a pain in my shoulder, so it was good to. I think it sort of went away when I was saying yes, or sort of accepting it rather than
Interesting.
Trying to move and make it more comfortable.
Right. Okay. So something shifted in the actual sensation of saying yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm in the bit, but I just wanted to say that I think I noticed that that my resistance is about, like, I was thinking, I've set aside the time to sit here, and I felt it really easy to open to the yes, but then I was thinking about, because I'm working with pain as well, how my resistance is actually about not wanting it to interrupt the ordinary flow of my life. And I was wondering how, or what you would say in response to that, like, how do you sort of practice in life, or is it just like, actually my body's, to say yes to this is to stop, or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's pointing to something really important. Can I ask you just a bit more?
Sure.
So you've got ongoing pain?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rheumatoid arthritis. So at the moment I've got a bit of a flare up, and I haven't had one for a while. And so I'm just like, no, I want to be able to do my week, and I don't want this, and it's quite a big, busy time that I'm heading into. And so it's like, yeah, I felt it really strongly when I was just like, this is great right now, but how do I mobilize that equanimity, during the day?
when you are in pain and you're having to do a lot.
Yeah, when the yes would actually be just like stop, and maybe that's it. Maybe I need to think about that or something.
That's what I think is really interesting, because that's going to be a wisdom question, isn't it? What I mean by that is the experience of, I mean, it's a very simplistic practice in order to generate a bit of curiosity about what it offers in your body when you say yes. So you might say yes to the stress that's caused when you do want to keep doing what you have to do, even though you've got pain. Or it might be more skillful to go, okay, if I say yes to this pain, I have to do less in this week and give things up. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that practice just made me realize I think that idea of subtlety, like subtle aggression and how that works, it's all very subtle. All of that no seems to me quite subtle. It's not like I hate myself. It's just like, I'm just going to slowly push through all this pain.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, there's a subtlety. I've got a lot to work with. So thanks for that practice.
Yeah, I actually have a frozen shoulder that I've had for 6 months, and yeah, I'm working in the same territory as you.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, so I think it is a wisdom question, and it is a matter of subtlety, I think. Yeah, I think you're right. And it doesn't necessarily, I just led a practice group here in Waverley, and I think there can be real confusion about, especially, it often comes up when people are saying, around sort of practice, oh, does that mean I should say yes to everything in my life? Or, even to people who are, I've realised I don't want to spend much time with anymore or something. Should I, a kind of, we have to be careful, I think, about setting boundaries out of our experience of what we're getting unpleasant experiences of information that we have to act on too, to look after our life, hey? That makes sense. Hello.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. Who's that?
I keep getting muted by you.
Oh, do you?
It's Nicholas.
Oh, hi, Nicholas. G'day.
Hi. I thought I'd jump in there because some questions arose just quite similar to what you were expressing at the end there.
Yep.
And the no practice was very intense for me, actually. I found like a spiral of no's happening, and then saying no to the whole practice of saying no. So it was interesting to watch that unfold, and it was very unpleasant. And I found the yes practice interesting because in the last few weeks I've been working quite intensely with like a focused concentration practice just on the breath, and which requires a lot of discipline in just returning to the breath over and over again. And as I found myself saying yes, I found a difference in being in the acceptance of whatever the experience was, and then inviting. There's a difference, two different yeses that I found. One was an invitational yes, and then one was a sort of an acceptance yes. And I'm still sort of bumbling my way through and don't really understand how, or I guess, I don't know. I'm just exploring this at the moment, but in noticing particularly mental activity, saying, oh yes, that's okay that I'm thinking that.
Yes.
But now I want to stop thinking about that and return my attention somewhere else. Because there's kind of a no in that as well.
Yeah, or there's discernment, isn't there? I don't know what your experience is like in those moments, but I've been actively exploring really turning towards, so say there's like in that exploration, there's a whole lot of mental activity and thinking comes, and actually you want to be practicing a strong focus on the breath for whatever reason, a one-pointedness. And I think it's worth it to take maybe 10 seconds longer to really turn towards that part of you that is actively thinking and say, hi, what's bugging you? Like treating it like as a part, because it might, and there's so many different kinds of thinking. It might be random, a really flurry, distracted, sort of a purposelessness kind of distraction. Might call it distraction, or it might be, and maybe you'd be prepared to say, but if it's a worry about something that's going on in your life, or a preoccupation with, a health thing, or, then to really turn towards and take 10, 15 seconds to say, hey, tell me, what's bugging you? And that part can actually be heard a bit, and just, kind of let it know, okay, talk to you in 30 minutes. I'm onto it. Like, I appreciate your dilemma or whatever. I think it's really helpful. And that's a practice of non-aggression. It's not like you're just dismissing, pushing aside, but actually being able to, and I've been working with this in myself, actively saying yes to all the different parts of me that come up in meditation. And you can also do it in life. And it often doesn't take us, and the parts sort of, it's so interesting. If you treat them like little people almost, it's like they go, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll step back for a minute. You could say, look, can you just step back and stop flooding me with those thoughts for a minute, because I'm actually trying to be on the breath, because that's going to be good for my health. Check it out. Does that make sense to you, Nicholas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that was the way I was practicing a lot until the last month. And I went to this, I went to Burma to a retreat, and as part of their practice, they're just like, don't pay any attention to the thoughts, I know. And it was incredible, because like seeing what came up and seeing where my mind wanted to go all the time was very insightful in itself. But then it was difficult to not, pay attention and analyze and acknowledge and
Yeah, there's a beautiful question. This comes from internal family systems work that I'm getting involved in. There's a beautiful question. I mean, I know the rationale of those, those retreats where you're really just asked to not go there at all. But I think it can set up a certain kind of struggle or aggression. And I think there's something profound in this question, and maybe you can muck around with it, which is to ask the part of you that is doing that thinking, ask yourself, whatever that is, the not self, ask yourself, what do I feel towards this part of me that's got this worry or doing this thinking? And if it's irritable or cranky or disappointed, ask that part to step back until you can get a response of compassion, acceptance. And then that, as soon as you extend that, in a way, a yes to that part that is worried, anxious, those thoughts are coming from somewhere, that frees the whole system up. And then and then you could even say, look, can you just step back and stop flooding me with that right now? I just think this beautiful acceptance negotiation of these, what I'd call parts of ourselves, can be really give us a way of working actively with the yes in a way that doesn't get too much involved actually with those thoughts, because they're accompanied by emotions too. They've got motivation. They're banging on your door for some reason. And we don't necessarily do that in the practice, but just to ask, how do I feel? Can I find an empathy or a compassion or even a curiosity towards this part of me that keeps banging on my door? It's like Nat Hahn, I think, says if a crying child was coming up to you and needing, distressed, you wouldn't just kick it away. And, I know there's a lot of controversy about, in the practice of mindfulness and Buddhism, about, Buddhism being psychologized. And there's just, there's skillful means, I think, and different people are going to really flourish with different ways of practicing. Yeah. The other thing I'd love to offer you actually on that point of, what you've raised, Nicholas, so beautifully, of how do we practice? There's so many methods and so many honourable methods and so much wisdom. These people who've, in the Asian traditions been practicing forever. And, I know I'm just some, mindfulness teacher who's finding my way. And but there's a beautiful book called American Dharma by a woman called Anne Gleig, and it just gives the whole history. I mean, like most things American, it's not just to do with America, it's sort of really relevant to Australia actually too. We're swimming in the same pond, damn it. But very insightful book, and it really covers many of these controversies about how we might practice or what's most skillful. And she's a practitioner and she's a theoretician and she's a historian. So, wow, it just blew my mind, and also gave me a sense of, where is my practice? Where does my practice and the way I'm teaching live in the context of Buddhism or the mindfulness revolution? Or it was very freeing and honouring that there's all these different ways of going about it, and they all have their reasons, causes and conditions, and we've got choice. We're so blessed that we've actually got some, it can get confusing, but we do have some choice about what's going to benefit me now in this 3 months or in this 5 years, about what I want to pursue. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Anything else to be said about that from you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in your perspective. Do you think? I really think that's beautiful to just pay a brief. You're suggesting even like a brief moment of attention to the thoughts that are arising, until you can really deepen into that compassion and self-love and acceptance. It's like but I'm wondering whether you feel that, and I guess in my experience, I feel like things are getting processed without even consciously paying attention to them.
Of course they are. Yeah, and we know that. I mean, I think it's very interesting, and we haven't got enough time to go further, sadly. But I think it's really interesting to ask, like in the tradition you're practicing in, when you go and do that retreat in Burma, what is the intention? So of that one-pointed practice, what is the intention? And those teachers will have a serious intention that they are enabling, offering that kind of practice. And my intention might be different from theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And yours. So it depends on the context, eh? And it depends. I think that's a really good question, because that one-pointed practice, focusing on the body, if you're focusing on the breath, or, if you're doing that very rigorous practice of body scanning in a very concentrated way, it's got an intention, and it's going to be to do with that particular form of Buddhism. And go for it, but know your intention. And that'll help you choose that way of practicing rather than another way of practicing. And we do know that, doing endless body scanning is profoundly emotionally regulating. It's processing a whole lot of stuff, thoughts, emotions, the past, through the body scanning. It's just a fantastic method, whether you attend to those thoughts or not. Stuff is going to be digested and processed, huh? Yeah, so many different wisdoms.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Tim.
But look up American Dharma, really satisfying book.
I will.
Yeah,
I will. Thanks.
Okay, so feel free to be in touch if you want to, if anything's bubbled up from this that you want to just pursue a little bit further. Yeah, I just wanted to mention one person who's done a chat, David, has said, very unsatisfactory practice for me. No link suggested by Tim between saying yes and no to things. Yeah, so maybe, David, you could get in touch with me, because we haven't got time now. It'd be good to check that out with you. And just a note, which is really important that I mentioned during the practice, is we're saying yes and no to experience, not to things. We can only know things through experience. So that's just a technical thing that I hope opens something for you, if that's meaningful. We're saying we're working with our experience, not with things. So should we just take another couple of minutes to drop in and just know right now how this practice has touched you, how this discussion has touched you, and just what's arising now. Opening to the flow of experience that's just here. Thanks everybody. Deep bow. I'd love to hear all your voices. I'd love to give you all a big hug.